good morning, and it's time for Politically Speaking with your host, Larry Novak. Heard every Saturday morning at 11:05. Join in by calling 508-822-1106. It's time for Larry Novak and Politically Speaking.
This is Larry Novak with Politically Speaking, the most talked about Republican show on the South Shore. I thought we'd have open lines today. I will go back to guests in a few weeks, but I enjoyed the hour to discuss major issues that are appearing in the paper. One of the major issues is the Weld campaign. The Boston Herald did an article on Bill Weld today that talked that he had the staff is only size of 8. He doesn't need 25, he says. He is campaigning in New Hampshire, but people are doubtful of the message. Well, a lot of people question Weld's judgment when he ran as a Libertarian candidate for vice president. They wondered if Bill Weld understood what he was doing. It surely lacked credibility. It brought nothing to the table, and they were not a major influence on the outcome of the election. Donald Trump won. Bill Weld disappeared into the pages of history and as a footnote. The footnote was that he ran as vice president as a Libertarian candidate. Now, 2 years later, he's coming back seeking the Republican nomination for president, and he's spending most of his time in New Hampshire. He has some major issues. He's going to have to explain the Libertarian run to Republican primary voters that would be turned off by it. He's going to have to explain some of his own conduct. He has a former United States Senator Al D'Amato gunning for him in the state of New York over the indictment of his brother who was found not guilty that Weld approved. The issue then becomes, can Bill Weld rise above all this and make a major impact against the president? Most leading political commentators don't think Bill Weld will be able to raise the money, and they don't think he'll ever get off the ground. There is no movement in Massachusetts towards Weld at the present time. There's very little movement, period, towards either political candidate. People are not tuned into this election yet. The activity level is on the Democratic side, where there were over 20 candidates. The first debate is June 26th, and it's minor league candidates with Senator Warren. The second debate with the heavyweights of the Democratic Party is June 27th. Will Warren be able to continue her momentum, or will she start fading? You know, I encourage people to pick up the new issue of the Boston Broadside. It's a new newspaper that's trying to have an impact in Massachusetts that gives it from a conservative viewpoint. It is a well-put-together paper by Lonnie Brennan, who's done outstanding work in the field trying to build up readership and get people involved. We all should encourage that. Newspapers are disappearing, and Lonnie had the moral courage to start a new newspaper during the era when newspapers are declining. When I pick up the Enterprise, it breaks my heart to see that great paper that it was in the 70s, 80s, and 90s is disappearing. There's not much left to it. You had good reporters there, John Hoy. You had some bad reporters over the year, Maureen Boyle, who was a partisan Democrat and now teaches at Stonehill College. Shame on Stonehill College hiring somebody of that extreme ilk to teach a course in public life. Maureen Boyle only knows one way, the liberal way. She has not been somebody that's been an outstanding reporter. Her articles really made any sense. But now when she was covering things, and I'm surprised that, the Fullers didn't fire her, she was on the Democratic City Committee at one point in New Bedford as a reporter. How could she have been unbiased? Nobody would suggest otherwise. Now she's at Stonehill College again, promoting a liberal agenda. Students say to me that they don't like to take the class because she is so one-sided in her political beliefs. Shame, shame on Stonehill College for employing somebody like that. Getting back to the Weld campaign, that was my aside for the day. We're seeing Bill Weld trying to start something from the grassroots. Very difficult to do. I would say that Weld will have a major problem raising sufficient funds to be competitive. I would think the New Hampshire race alone would be 3 to 4 million. Weld only raised 7 million when he ran from the United States Senate and had the backing of the Republican National Party heavily involved. He didn't do well on that race. And the reason he didn't do well is he forgot those people that helped him get to the governorship. He walked away from them. They all walked away from him in the Senate race. I know in the governor's race in Brockton, there was at one point 1,000 signs up. In the Senate race, there wasn't 50 signs up. Nobody wanted to help. They didn't think he delivered what he promised. And so I would think, the old guard, which would now be the old guard of the Republican Party, those memories will be fresh. He took care of a certain few, but not of the majority of those that assisted him. I think he has a difficult road at best. Politicians that leave really come back. It's very difficult to restart over again because people remember what you didn't do for them. Not what you did for the Commonwealth, but what you didn't do for them. And they're the reasons you get elected, because they go out and hold the signs. They go out and do the grassroots knocking on the doors. And when that came, Weld in 90 carried the city, in 94 carried the city. So Brockton was competitive for Weld. It was competitive for Salucci and Malone. It is not competitive now, because once the Republicans got in, they forgot that it was the local Republicans that helped them get there. They appointed all Democrats to expand their base, which was never good. You have to remember your local supporters once you get there. Now we're going to see, another day, is he going to be able to turn on the magic that propelled him into the governorship here? Is he going to find an issue that will propel him to overtake President Trump? I think it's difficult at best. Will he get 30% of the vote? Who knows? He's going to have to campaign awfully hard and meet a lot of people. And the key here is in New Hampshire would be, where do the independents go? Will they be attracted to the Republican primary, or will they be attracted to the Democratic primary? If they all go to the Democratic primary, then Weld will do very poorly in New Hampshire. The activists are with the president. And getting back, so that is the area that we must analyze. The Boston Broadside newspaper, and everybody should look on it online, is a coming up newspaper. It's catching on fire with people who have conservative viewpoints, that like to read something from a conservative viewpoint, news coming there. It will show, it shows balance. It shows, people involvement in the communities. It's a people's newspaper. Lonnie Brennan should be commended for the outstanding public service he is offering Massachusetts on alternative newspaper. It's a monthly publication. There's 12 issues a year, and it does quite well with Republican activists and other Republican figures. It's probably the spokesman for the Republican Party right now. And as we see, the Republicans need to field 40 state Senate candidates and 160 state rep candidates. If they do not field candidates, it means, as Winston Churchill put it very well once, a political party that fails to fight dies. A political party that fights will rise again from the ashes. That is true. If you continue to fight for your beliefs, eventually you will be victorious. For years after Governor Sargent, they said there'd never be another Republican governor. But there was, and the fight continued for years. And then they've now captured the governorship of, in the last Democratic governor was Deval Patrick, and he was only there for 8 years, and before him there were 3 Republican governors, and after him there's another Republican governor probably seeking the 3rd term. How many people believe that Charlie Baker should run for a 3rd term? Give us a call at 508-822-1106. The race from mayor is heating up in Brockton, which the Republican Party never really used to get involved, but this time we might send out a letter to key Republicans urging them who to vote for. Or we might endorse one of the Democratic candidates because it's the future of the city. And it's so important what is done and how it should be done. So we will see. We invited all 3 Democrats to appear before us. If they don't appear, they're not interested in Republican votes. They're going to govern without building a coalition. They're going to govern simply by dictating policy from the left. So that would be an interesting thing to see. If we continue this, the basis of any political party is to run candidates. When they stop running candidates, they surrender the high ground of ideas. Ideas breed competition. Ideas change the way we think of things. When I was a kid, the fact that marijuana is now legal in Massachusetts would never have been considered. The Republicans once in the 50s put abortion question on the ballot, and they took a terrible beating as the church organized every church in the Commonwealth to defeat it. Now it's actually law. The Republican Party was in the forefront of that issue in the 50s, and they promoted it. You saw the first black African Americans served from Massachusetts in the United States Senate, elected on its own. Ed Brooke was now passed. He was nominated by the Republican Party. The first woman elected on her own in Congress, Edith Rogers, Republican, Margaret Heckler, Republican. It has only been as of late that the Democrats have nominated some women to public office. And some of them have extreme views. And you have to wonder, is this what you want representing you? And you have to ask that question. What does the future hold for the Democratic Party? Is it the party of socialism? Is it the party that will back radical ideas that are warranted by no constituency in the United States? Or is it the party of moderation and continuing to fight for the small guy? It has never really fought for the small guy. It's always been the party that has promoted radicalization in Massachusetts. When you look at the people, I can't name, and I am very politically active, one thing that Senator Markey has accomplished, and I can't name one thing that Senator Warren's pushed or accomplished. That is a telling tale that they don't get anything done. They might be good on PR and going around to events, but what have they actually brought home? Where's the bacon? There was an old saying, where's the meat? They're judged on what they accomplish. I have two radical women state reps, Princess Cronin, in my district, who uses the campaign as a personal bank account, and of course nothing's done. She's never investigated. Go and look up her list of contributors. Look up what she spends the money on. Every restaurant in Boston she goes to. She is constantly using donors' money to go out to eat or stay in hotels in Boston. Was that the intent of the legislation? Or was the intent to regulate campaign finances so the money would be actually spent promoting yourself in an elective office? Why should she be able to make personal campaign donations to public charities to further her name and what a good person she is? Or is it really just for political reasons? I ask the public to be the judge of that. It is, on June 19th, the Brockton Republican City Committee will be hosting a fundraiser at Lonnie Lee Country Club on Torrey Street. I think it's 148 Torrey Street. And the tickets are $100, and you can reach them if you'd like to attend to promote the buying of lawn signs for the candidates in the city and for the president. You can reach us at Alan Green at 508-584-2258. That is, again, you can reach Alan Green at 508-584-2258. If he doesn't get back to you in a few, we might get back to you the following day, but he will get back to you. Or you can reach myself at 781-600-1566. I decided today to, take a little time to talk about the importance of political party positions. They're really the ones that do the work for the Republican and Democratic Party. They're the unsung heroes. They make up they're the ones that get people involved and seek the nominations thing. There are people that talk a lot and don't do any work. People with the biggest mouths, critical of other people that used to do the work, but when it really came right down to it, when they ran, they disappear very quickly, or they never hold meetings. They didn't hold meetings. They didn't raise money. They didn't recruit candidates. They didn't do anything that they wanted these offices for. You have to be very wary of the type of person that you put in these positions. I have a state committee man, I'm not going to name him, that never has come to the biggest city in the district once. Never shows up at a monthly meeting, never buys a ticket to a fundraiser. Why hold that position if you're not going to do anything? What is the purpose of it? You're not going to fight for the Republican Party. You sit in the back seat just for another title on your resume. Shame on the voters when they put people in like that. They should be analyzed. Who does and who doesn't do. People that don't do anything or just run for further office shouldn't be allowed to hold those offices. Just going to state committee meetings isn't the function of the job. It's to organize the ward and town committees in the district. Well, he did a great job in Brockton when they were on the ballot the last time. I wasn't involved or around. They had 16 people. 2 were Democrats. They had 14 out of availability of 245 seats. They did a great job, didn't he? Then you go to the town of Plimpton. There were 35 seats. How many were organized? None. No committee even filed. Then you go and you look at the Democratic side. They weren't much better in Brockton. They're down. They don't have full ward committees. Senator Brady, you should be ashamed of yourself. You are the leader of the Democratic Party in the 2nd Plymouth Bristol District, and you don't even have full committees anywhere. Shame, shame, shame. Maybe you should be spending your time devoting to building your party, and then instead of other things that you've been involved with. It's time to tell it like it is. You should be held accountable as the head Democrat. Then you go and you look at the Brockton City Council. It's made up of all Democrats. Is Brockton better since they've taken over? Is it safer? Are the test scores rising? Has it had the lowest foreclosure rate in the New England? No. The answer to all those questions is Brockton's on the 100 most dangerous communities in America. They have Boston Magazine rates them 150 out of 155 school districts. It rates Brockton at 154. Well, the Democratic politicians cry, it's because we don't have the money. Well, there are school districts that spend less than the city of Brockton that have much higher on the list. Well, so that is a fallacy, and they're trying to shade the issue. They want to promote policies that have failed. They won't admit those failures. Look where the liberal Democrats are the strongest, in the cities, and then think, is this the America you want? They failed leadership that has come out. Urban decay, rapid decline in educational values. You know what? If I was a minority living in Brockton, I would demand that they do something, that my kids be educated to the fullest, and that they do something about the education system. And if they're not doing it, replace them. The members of the school committee have a fiduciary duty to ask those questions. Do they? No. If they did, times would be changing. And it's the students, the next generation of leadership, that it's being denied. The parents should rise up again and sweep out the Brockton members of the Brockton School Committee. They have failed in their leadership ability to make change. Yes, the bureaucrats will always fight change. You're the enemy. Well, guess what? If you're the enemy and you want better schools for the kids, so be it. Those are the issues. The administration is overburdened with too many administrators, not enough money going into classrooms. Those are the issues. You know what? Should we become more computer literate? Yes. But should you be able to add and subtract and multiply without using a calculator on the computer? Of course you should. Those are the basic skills that are lacking today in our youth. They are more interested in social media. We need to redirect it back to the basics. Math, English, they don't know where to put commas in. I can tell a funny story before we take a break. I was interviewing people for a law clerk's position a number of years ago in my office, law firm, and I asked them to submit writing samples. They didn't have commas. They were not, grammar was not correct. And I know stellar on that thing. I admit I could be better too. But I at least know where to put a comma, and at least know when to capitalize and start a paragraph. And they really had run-on sentences instead of getting to the point. Clarity in writing is very important. It's a future way you are going to be able to communicate with somebody. Those are the issues that are facing us today, and we're going to take a short break to hear from our sponsors, and I'll be back with you. This is Larry Novak with Politically Speaking, the most talked about Republican show on the South Shore. Let me go back. I want to discuss another issue. Looking at the city of Brockton and the crime rate. The Brockton Police Department does a good job. It has always been on demand since I've been a kid. There should be 250 patrolmen. They should never ever be in a car without a fellow officer with them. One-man patrol cars puts the officer at risk. There should always have been two-man patrol cars in the city of Brockton. It has never been done. It is not a good thing. It's a safety issue. But, you know, those issues in the police department has never got the resources needed to really solve the crime problem. We need to put more patrolmen out on the street. A police presence calms down criminal activity. An overwhelming police presence would then totally stop the illegality. You say, well, why is that important? Well, it's important for two reasons. If there's not a lot of people move into a community because they want to feel safe. They will move into more people would move back into Brockton because they felt safe. They would further feel that, you know, the property values would go up. Economic activity would increase. You know, when you don't have a local bank that is managed and run in the city of Brockton, it leads to distress. It leads to rundown areas. It leads to, because they take the capital that the people are saving and invest it in the Wellesleys and the Needhams. And that's wrong. We need a local bank in Brockton. We need to keep the enterprise local. It was bought by a chain that doesn't really understand Brockton. It doesn't understand the community. You know, I heard on CNN today, and it was an interesting thing, that over 2,000 newspapers have failed this year. And they're saying that some counties have no news coverage now. Well, without news coverage and getting out the message, you can't bring things to public attention that would stop them from happening. They will happen worse than they've ever happened before. Competition in the news cycle is good. I know that the youth like to read newspapers online. I personally still like a copy so you can go through it and study it and go back to it. Cable news covers very little. It covers, you know, what they think is sensationalism for that day to promote it. So I would encourage the public to buy local newspapers, encourage more coverage locally. When I was a child, which was many years ago, they used to cover every school committee meeting and every city council meeting. That doesn't happen anymore. I think you want reporters there. I think you want to make sure that what is being done and behind in the local government, because government that's closest to the people has the greatest impact on the people. So you want to see everything covered. You want it to be broad. You want it to be widely known. So a local newspaper accomplishes many things. It brings areas of concern out on the public. It brings the spotlight to get policy changed, because if a local newspaper highlights or goes after a local politician, then the public is aware of the fallacies of that politician or the issue. So those things are important. You know, I remember a Brockton enterprise that really led fights in the old days and was very involved in the community. That is disappearing. There aren't as many reporters as there once were. I remember reporters that were very aggressive. John Hoy from Taunton was very aggressive when in his day. He went after articles of public interest and published them. And I think that's what people really want. They want more involvement with the community. Getting back to the police department, unless we expand and put money into public safety, we're not going to turn it around. It will increase, that expenditure will increase property real estate values in the city of Brockton, a good thing. Property values are lower than the statewide average because the city has an image that it's unsafe. It's one of the major issues. Brockton has always had an image problem. If you would care to discuss this, give me a call at 508-822-1106, especially if you're care about public safety. If you're somebody that doesn't think we should have more police, we should less police, I'd like to hear that too. And I am glad to see somebody called me last week and asked me to talk about legal aid. Legal aid is two things. There's court-appointed legal aid in the district court and in Superior Court for criminal matters. It is really appointed in a civil case. So if you have a civil case, you're more or less out on your own. They will interview you to see if you qualify for a criminal case at the court level. A probation officer comes over, does a financial intake of your assets, and if you don't meet the guidelines, they assign a lawyer to you. If it's a lawyer that you don't like or you don't think is working hard for you, you can then ask the court to appoint a different lawyer. The lawyer works for you, the client. It might be paid by the state, but ultimately, he works for you. You make the decisions. If they're not letting you make the decisions, then you need to bring that to the attention of the court. It is your case, not their case. So don't let them tell you otherwise. You can have them file a motion to dismiss and a motion to suppress the evidence. What is a motion to suppress? That is a Fourth Amendment review of the case that the evidence was illegally collected and that it shouldn't be allowed in a courtroom. If the police violated some of your rights, you file a motion to suppress. There has to be probable cause to have arrested you in the first place. If they fail to have probable cause, then the case should be thrown out. A motion to dismiss is that doesn't rise to the level that a criminal complaint should ever have been taken. Usually what happens if a motion to suppress is allowed, then you file the motion to dismiss the complaint if it goes to the substance. Now, if everything that flows, the evidence is tainted and everything that flows from that evidence is the case against you, then and the judge throws out the evidence, then there is no case. You file the motion to dismiss because the Commonwealth can't prove the elements independently of you. Most cases are disposed of through a plea bargain. That's where the lawyer talks to the DA and they talk back and forth, offer you a settlement of the case. What you should consider is the long-term implications of a plea bargain, because you might plea bargain it out, it's going to follow you, you have a record. But the dismissal is also going to be a record. And the judge is going to see that if you ever get in any further difficulties, that there was a dismissal on your record. Or they're going to see the fact that dismissal, the media can gain access to your record by filing, going into the board and asking for your record. And it's a query. And queries are available to anybody. And they go in and ask for your police record. Those are the issues, the thing. If you don't feel that you're getting good treatment by your public defender, ask the court to replace them. And you should tell the judge there's been an irretrievable breakdown in communications. What does that mean? It means that you have no faith in the ability of the lawyer to carry out your instructions. The judge then will replace the lawyer. He had, on the case law, he'll ask you to see if it does work. He may say no, but if you keep raising the issue, you have the right to have another lawyer, and it will be decided. Usually the lawyer and you would have a parting in the ways, and the lawyer will be gladly step aside. So remember, those are important rights that you possess when going through. There is a lawyer of the day in probate. There's a lot of probate issues now that come up: child custody, support, visitation, wills, trust. And you go into the thing and ask to speak to the lawyer of the day in probate court. He'll show you how to fill out the forms, to get custody, how to fill out the forms to file for divorce, especially if you don't have the assets to pay for a lawyer, which they are expensive. And they will then show you what to do to get through it. They will help you. But in probate court, understand that he's only going to do it that day. He's not going to take the case. He'll show you how to file the paperwork, how to get the, if you need support, how to get the support, how to go forward. Though that's an issue that will be seen, that he will talk to you about. He will help you through the initial stages. Then you'll have a hearing before a judge, but you won't have probably a lawyer unless he asks the lawyer of the day to assist you. Those are the major two areas that we have got. On civil cases, there is no constitutional right for the appointment of a lawyer. So if you get sued, you're going to probably be on your own. But that isn't so bad. Sometimes I remember some people who were excellent being able to defend themselves in civil cases, which is a good thing, that they understood the system and they understood it well. So, those are the issues that need to be addressed. Now I have some public announcements that I said I would make. Jay McMahon, who ran for Attorney General of the Commonwealth in the last election, is running again. He is having a get-together in August. The invitations will be going out a day with Jay, and he's going to start raising money now, because it's going to take him probably 4 years to raise adequate funds to be competitive in the Attorney General's battle. It is always difficult to raise money as a Republican in Massachusetts because they don't run candidates all the time and they rarely win. So there's no established donor base. You go off and do it on your own. And if they had run candidates continuously, then there would be an established donor base and contact list of people that have stayed involved. This is Larry Novak with Politically Speaking, the most talked about Republican show in the South Shore. I can be reached at 508-822-1106. As we conclude this hour, I ask you to think of a number of things. August 6th is rapidly approaching. August 6th is the day that nomination papers come out for Ward and Town Committee and State Committee. State Committee is the political office that decides the viewpoint of where the Republican and Democratic Party goes. So if more conservative people run for the Democratic State Committee, it would change the outlook and the nomination of how people get elected in the Commonwealth. If more conservative Republicans run, it will change the nominees for governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, treasurer, and attorney general and auditor. I would propose the following: that the Republican Party start doing state Senate district conventions so that we would get nominations for state reps and to state senators, so that the ticket would be full to have a convention. You can change the rules and make them narrower, and make that as a requirement to get ballot access, that they receive 15% of the vote in a state senate district to appear on the ballot. That can be done by party rule because of the Buckley decision in the Commonwealth, and it should be followed through to get more people activity, greater participation by grassroots, people that go out and hold the signs, put the signs up, and really determine the future in a political party. It is probably would be considered a radical idea. It would take some time to pull off, but it would expand the base of political involvement. I would also articulate that we should go back to partisan local elections. Why? It gives more of a purpose for a town and city committee to exist, to find candidates in their local wards, that they require involvement. Their nomination would be worth something. And both political parties then would have a vested interest to make sure whoever they nominated won. They would get off their rear ends and go out and work. We don't see a lot of canvassing today like we used to, where the neighbors would go door to door and ask them who they're voting for. You rarely see it in Massachusetts. And the trend towards unenrollment, which it means you don't really want to declare and you don't really believe in either political party, is long-term trend is not healthy. It's our democracy is founded on a two-party system, and we're seeing that disappear in Massachusetts. I think it's 55%, Joey, unenrolled now. Could you look that number up?
Yeah, it's more than 50%.
Right. More than a majority now declare themselves as unenrolled in Massachusetts. That means that they don't believe in either political party. That means they're up for grabs, which is an interesting thing. I mean, I now see it in the city of Brockton coming. I think Ward 6 is for the first one that went to unenrolled status. It's a majority of unenrolled people in Ward 6, not Democrats. And so that trend is coming, and it will have more of an impact as time goes on. You'll see the trend escalating all over the Commonwealth. That means that the average person doesn't believe in either political party. They vote the individual. Well, I'd say the party beliefs are more relevant as time goes on, because if you believe in a cause, you can change the faces or the candidates by controlling the party apparatus. They're the ones that determine who will win and who will not win the nominations. So it will be interesting to see what will transpire in the years to come. Will the Republicans and Democrats disappear more? Hopefully not. Hopefully they will become more involved, and they'll be more willing to connect with the voters. Now, we are seeing this younger generation. Some of their ideas are more radical. As you age, you become more conservative. So, I mean, this younger generation will probably go from one extreme to the other as they age, and they have to pay real estate taxes, and they have to pay IRS bills, and they have to insure cars and buy cars, and they have to pay rent and mortgage payments. Then they'll probably become very conservative and say, gee, where is all this money going to come from? That has always been the question. This is Larry Novak with Politically Speaking, one of the most talked about Republican shows of the South Shore. If you care to comment on anything that we've been talking about, give us a call at 508-822-1106. This is Larry Novak with Politically Speaking. A short break and we'll be back. This is Larry Novak with Politically Speaking, one of the most talked about Republican shows on the South Shore. And as we conclude this hour, I personally do not think Governor Baker should run for a third term. I don't think it's unprecedented. I don't think it's good politics. I think that even though I'm an active Republican, he's a Republican governor, I believe that that people should only serve a limited time, that in the third term you become worn out, your ideas become old. But I think there's something else going on. I think he's going to be looking at a run for president after that. I think that he's going to run for a third term, looking to pile up his margin and then moving on to the national scene, as by then Trump would be exiting. If he gets reelected, or if he doesn't and a Democrat wins, there would be an open seat. For Republicans. So, I think that is the goal here, that he's looking seriously at running a race for the presidency. But I do not think third terms are a good thing for anybody in the governor's office. You become old and jaded. And I think that the public should think about that. Nelson Rockefeller ran for a third term and a fourth term in New York. And he said years later, it was the same old stuff, the third and fourth term, as the first two. I think that's what happens. I think that your ideas of when you came in either have been implemented or defeated, and you have no new vision usually. Rockefeller spent a lot of money in New York to advance its causes, and I think that was probably one of the demises of the Republican Party in New York, which for the first time ever lost the state senate, and that just happened recently. In the 2016 election, for the first time ever, the Republicans no longer control the state senate in New York. The Democrats have tried for years to take, and they finally took it. I would think that you have not seen a Republican senator in New York since Al D'Amato. So, they're having the same problem that the Massachusetts Republicans have. It's the lack of money. Now, getting back, and I ask you to conclude, and before we go to the year-end review, next week I'll try to get a guest back. I've been tied up with some other issues in the last couple of weeks, but I hope they seem to be coming to closure. We will be working hard to promoting our viewpoint on the South Shore and the greater South Shore area. This show does have a Republican tilt to it. It's one of the few in the media that does, and we will continue that tilt. There should be opportunity for candidates of both political parties to articulate their viewpoint so that the public has an opportunity to judge them on where they stand on the issues. This has been Larry Novak with Politically Speaking, and we're going to turn the show over for a year-end review.
Today's day in review is June 15th, and we have two. On June 15th, 1836, Arkansas was admitted to the Union as the 25th state. And the second day in review that we have for today is in 1982 on June 15th. In the capital city of Stanley, the Falklands War ended as Argentine troops surrendered to the British.
The British Margaret Thatcher did a commanding job, a job well done. She brought Britain back from the economic collapse to being one of the major world players again. She turned the British military around. She didn't care what it cost. She wanted victory at all costs. She sailed, even though the United States at one time, President Reagan was opposed to the involvement, She said that she was going to see the fight to the finish. She did. You have to commend her because she was right. She judged the issue according to the way it should have been judged. Margaret Thatcher has now left us, but she left a commanding but divisive Britain. People either loved her or hated her in Britain, but she never surrendered her beliefs. She fought to the bitter end in what she believed. She fought for a better Britain. She fought for economic justice. She fought for a fair and unbiased criminal justice system. Margaret Thatcher was a leader that reinvigorated a declining economic power and military power in the world. We salute Margaret Thatcher for what she did. This is Larry Novak with Politically Speaking, and I will join you next week. Join in and listen.